In summer 2021, $16 billion were wiped off the value of 3 Chinese companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Collectively, they lost 60% of their value in just 60 minutes of trading. These were private education companies who suffered after a leaked memo suggested Beijing might ban academic tutors from making profit. The memo declared that homeschooling or off-campus education companies would have to register for non-profit status. The UK Financial Times wrote, "This would be a heavy blow for one of China's fastest-growing industries, tutoring children outside of school and preparing teenagers for university entrance exams." So why did Beijing make this move? That's what we're going to answer in this edition of Second Opinion. Our source material is this article in the Financial Times, and we'll be using a Wardley map. You should be able to follow this video even if you're new to Wardley maps. But if you'd like to learn more about this powerful tool, visit our website at powermaps.net. Once there, click on the Method page and watch the short introductory video explaining how to read a Wardley map. When creating a Wardley map, the first thing we do is identify who is the main user or beneficiary. The FT article tells us that in recent years, the competition to get into top-ranked middle schools and universities has intensified in China. And this is why the after-schooling tutoring industry has taken off, as students at private for-profit schools get higher grades than those studying in local schools. The article explains that many Chinese parents believe that a good education is the best way to move up the social ladder. So who needs their children to receive a good education? Chinese families. And so we're making Chinese families our users in this map. And for that, families need to get their children into the best schools and universities. Today, that means paying for private tutoring. Now, the most important part of the Wardley map is the x-axis, which shows the evolution of everything we do and how we do it. From something novel that's never been done before on the left-hand side of the map, to something more widely accepted as best practice on the right-hand side of the map. We can now show how getting a good education is a widely accepted best practice amongst Chinese families wanting to get on in life. And as some schools and universities provide a better education than others, we put these in the product space, as we do for private tutoring. But this private tutoring boom has worried Beijing, as it puts a heavy workload on students and a financial burden on parents. And Beijing has decided that it needs to reduce this stress on families. Now, the critical tone of this article suggests the FT isn't convinced that Beijing should be focused on this at all. So we've put reducing stress on families on the left-hand side of our map, suggesting that it's an emerging practice not widely accepted. Beijing expects to make significant progress in reducing stress within 3 years, making it more of a good practice that others might copy. So how will they do this? Beijing's first move is to set immediate guidance prices for off-campus training courses, essentially price caps for private tutoring companies. Private tutoring companies will also be prevented from raising capital through IPOs, making the business model less attractive for investors. This will shrink the private education industry dramatically, potentially leading to tens of thousands of staff being laid off. These layoffs will be mitigated in part by making foreign tutors bear the brunt of it, by strictly banning them from tutoring Chinese children. This will hit education tech companies hardest, those using internet platforms for foreign teachers abroad to teach students in China online. It's likely that Beijing will invest heavily in local teachers, perhaps encouraging online education providers to repurpose their platforms to support this, and to make local schools better. Now, the FT article was fairly critical of Beijing's moves, which they described as a crackdown that was dealing a very heavy blow against one of China's fastest-growing industries. They were upset at the losses the 3 listed companies suffered, and that 2 more Chinese education companies will now not be doing an IPO. They also questioned whether the banning of foreign tutors was about regaining ideological control, or whether any of this would benefit students. But they did admit that Beijing thinks the benefits of this move might outweigh the costs. So what might those benefits be that the FT article isn't seeing? Well, let's add another user to our map, Chinese society. Beijing believes that China's economy has now entered a new stage of development, which means they need more high-quality workers. This means the country must skill up its human capital to meet the demands of a new type of economy in China. If this demand is left to private tutoring companies to supply, this would be very profitable for them, as they could raise prices accordingly. But it would increase the stress on low-income earners in China today, and this would limit the supply of human capital the future economy needs, as huge sections of society will have been priced out of the education they need today. Of equal concern to Beijing are the profoundly negative effects of such education and income inequality that they've seen in other parts of the world. At a conference in August 2021, Xi Jinping commented on the collapse of the middle class in other countries and the widening gap between rich and poor, which has led to social disintegration, political polarization, and rampant populism. China today has also wide gaps in its income distribution, which threatens social mobility and risks creating an unequal stratified society. So Beijing is moving to create a more inclusive and equitable education system that enables more people to improve their ability to find employment, start businesses, and their capability to get rich. Choking off private companies by mandating education to be non-profit is all about raising the standards of basic public services for all. This move is about preventing a two-tiered system of development emerging in China, where the wealthiest prosper and the stress of trying to get on falls heaviest on low-income families. So while the FT laments China's crackdown on a fast-growing industry, we can see here that Beijing's moves are part of a longer-term strategy aimed at delivering future economic growth and common prosperity. And this is what great strategic players do. They make moves. And if you'd like to see what moves you could and should be making, contact us at powermaps.net and see what we can do for you.